right, everyone, this is Tim with Online Big Blue, bringing you the best in New York Giants sports talk entertainment. It's a rainy Wednesday. You gotta hate these rainy days, and it's gonna rain till I think May. Probably not till May, but I think it's gonna rain for the next couple days. Want to talk about the Giants' voluntary workouts. Want to talk about Kadarius Toney. Want to talk about the smooth sounds of Kenny G. Why? Because both players, in some regards, are fighting the bust label. I also want to talk about Malik WIllis for a minute too, but they're fighting the bust label. These two guys, and sometimes that label is hard to shake, and sometimes the label is warranted. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a perception of being a bust. Sometimes it's just not. You're not looking at the big picture. But I think with both of these guys going into this season, going into 2022, that label is floating in the hemisphere. It's floating above. And especially with Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney, of course, with all the pomp and circumstance that he came in being drafted and how he started his Giant career with the feet problems and then COVID and then the injuries, and our special teams coach basically saying we don't trust him to return kickoff and punts, that he doesn't really know the playbook. And then he gets his opportunity, and he doesn't get his opportunity to really get into the offense because of the fact that he won that opportunity. He got into the game in Dallas, basically. I should also say going back more to the Saints because of injury. And then everyone's going to point out he had 39 receptions at 420 yards, but they're also not going to point out he had 189 of those yards in one game in Dallas. And then his highlight, or his most yards after that game, the Dallas game was on October 10th. His next big game, where he had 12 targets for 7 receptions for 40 yards, was in Tampa in November 22nd. So he went through a percentage in a period of time where he was fighting the injuries, he was fighting the ability, and it's one of those things that, is he talented? Yes, I think athletically I don't know if he's talented. I'll tell you this. I think athletically he's gifted. Is he talented? I can't tell you that. Because of the fact that if you take a look what scouts said about him coming out of college, he's very unique route runner. Which is a nice way of putting it, is he doesn't run his routes well. People compare him to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is actually a very good route runner. And Kadarius Toney to me is maybe a below average route runner. And you can only rely on your juking and your jitterbugging so long. And I've said this a million times. Defenses figure it out. Defenses, when you have a player such as Kadarius Toney, who doesn't run disciplined routes, who relies more on trying to fake people out, what happens is the defense just says, you know what? We're going to let you catch the ball, maybe on a little flare. I'm going to park a guy in front of you who's going to mirror you while you're doing your moves and your juking, and then the rest of the defense is going to close in. And that's what happened with Kadarius after basically the Dallas game. If you take a look at his yards per reception after the Dallas game, which was 18.9, it was 12, 6.5, 9, 5, 7. You could attribute that to injury, but a lot of that also has to do with defenses. If you're not disciplined in what you do, defenses figure it out. Defenses figure out that we're going to run a little out pattern. And we're going to try to have him fake out the defense because we know at this point in time he cannot maneuver or have the maneuverability or the route running ability to fool anyone and gain separation. Now, you would think after the season that he had, like I said, 420 yards, but 189 of those yards came in one game. And I think, again, you have to take that into consideration when you're talking about him, because you're talking about the fact that after that one game, he only gained 231 yards. And people say, well, he was injured. Well, he played in 5 games. So that's 230 yards over 5 games. Let me do the math right now. That means he was getting 46 yards a game. And he was targeted 9 times, 12 times at times. It's one of those things that you just figure it out. Can he become a more disciplined route runner? You hope with the proper coaching. Yeah, sure he can. Is it a big deal that he did not show up to the voluntary workout? No. It's not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a big issue. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's going to be detrimental to his career because he didn't show up. But I will say this, and it has nothing to do with his rap career that I'm upset. I'm not even upset about it, but I know some people are upset that he's a rapper. That he's a hip hop guy. I did a melody. I did a rap melody on the stream yesterday. What does that prove? Proves nothing. Who cares? You can do whatever you want in the off season. You do whatever else, on your own time, as long as it's not affecting your work. Who cares? But the problem is you have a new coaching regime. You have a new head coach who's offensive minded, who's worked with like Stephon Diggs. You have a new offensive coordinator. You have an ability to gain a jump start, or re-jump your career in some regards, to potentially shake the bust label and move into a better and newer direction with a clean slate. Like Brian Daboll said, we are giving everyone a clean slate. Everyone has got a clean slate and a clean opportunity in this team. The other player we need to talk about a little bit is my old buddy. We all know who my old buddy is. It's Kenny G. Kenny G is just one of those guys. And, like I've said,
this town needs an enema.
That's evidently the wrong sound effect. That's not the Kenny G sound effect. And I know which sound effect it is now.
Bringing you the smooth sounds of Kenny G. 72 million. Not worth it, as you can plainly see.
When we signed Kenny G, when we signed him, or even before that, I did videos saying I didn't want him. And not because I didn't think he was talented. I spoke to people in Detroit, and I mentioned this many times on many videos before we even signed him. Nobody in Detroit was upset that he was going to leave. Everyone thought that he dogged it in Detroit, that his hip pointer wasn't as serious as it was, and he probably could have played when he was out. And like I said, this is what people that are in Detroit were telling me, that he could have played more than 5 games, that he was that the baby Megatron label was more given to him by himself than it was by the team, by other players, or by people, in the stands, the fans. That he had 2 good years in a row, one really good year, which was in 19. And then, like I said, they basically think he took 2020 off. That he was a contested catch guy. And his highest catch percentage in his career was 62%. And he only played in 5 games, but then you were under 60% the 3 years prior to that, 56, 58, 58. And people didn't want to look at that catch percentage, which is fine. And most people were like, he is more of a dome guy. If you take a look at his stats, not an outdoor guy. And he benefit for having Matthew Stafford as a quarterback. The same way we've talked about before, that if you take a look at all the wide receivers outside of Odell Beckham recently, who just won a Super Bowl and did have 1,000 yards with the Browns, what receiver thrived after leaving Eli Manning from the Giants? Really, none of them. None of them had the same success ever that they had with Eli Manning. And it's the same with Matthew Stafford. You're in a dome. You're in perfect conditions. You basically have a track for a turf. And that's, and then that's what you turn into. And like I said, people in Detroit told me this. They said, good riddance, 72 million. They laughed. He got twice as much as Corey Davis. And people go, well, if you take a look at the contract value, it's probably twice as much. Yeah, you look at the entire totality of the contract, not just the guaranteed money. And people got to learn that. But we're not going to get into that. So nobody was upset. Nobody was crushed that I knew of, that I spoke to, over in Detroit. So he gets the big money to come to the Giants. I'm sitting there going, okay, he had 3,068 yards in Detroit. He had 16.8 catches, but in 4 seasons, he only had 21 touchdowns. And again, like Kadarius Toney, 11 of those touchdowns came in 1 season, which means over 3 seasons beyond that, he only had 10 touchdowns. So people are like, well, he had no touchdowns. Honestly, if you look at it in his career, his touchdown totals, it's 3, 5, 11, and 2. It's not like he's a touchdown machine. He had 1 good year in the red zone. And I think it's funny that he had 11 touchdowns in 19. He was targeted 116 times. He was actually targeted more 3 more targets in 18 and only had 5 touchdowns. That's something you need to look at. So you look at that and you're saying to yourself, the Giants have the Dable says, I have an interesting way we're going to do this. We're going to focus on getting on the ball. We're going to work on this, blah, 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 blah. The problem I had with Kenny, and this is a problem. In 14 games, he was targeted 76 times, which means if you extrapolate that over 16 games, and let's say it's 10 targets a game, he would have been targeted 96 times a game, which would be 26 less than his big season in 19. But he only had 37 receptions for 48.7%. He only caught 48.7% of his passes. That's not on the quarterback. Some might be on the quarterback. Some of that might be in the offensive line, but some of it's also on the wide receiver itself. He's not a speed guy. He's not a long speed guy. He's a big guy. People used to compare him to Plexico Burress, and I said the same thing. The only thing that compared to him and Plexico Burress is their size. Because Kenny is 6'4", 213 pounds. I can't speak this. I think it's the snow. I can't speak this morning. Plexico Burress was 6'5", but he had speed. He not only had he had game speed and he had long speed, and he had the ability to go over the top and get the ball because he was athletic enough. And to me, Kenny is not as athletic as Plex was, so we can't have those comparisons. But what Kenny needs to do is, and like I said, Kenny blamed the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator he may design the plays, but he doesn't throw the ball. There was plenty of times that Daniel Jones didn't even look to the side of Kenny G. And he can't go after his quarterback because, you can't touch Daniel Jones. He can't go after his quarterback, but so he does the next best thing. He goes after the offensive coordinator. Kenny another guy, if he wants to reshed the bust label, another guy that needs to just focus on himself and focus on himself in regards to improving his game, improving his route running. And another guy who we cannot just rely on him to go up and get the contested ball. We cannot rely on him to do that. We have to rely on him like we have to rely on Kadarius Toney to do different things. Not just go, my skill set is I'm going to go after the contested catch. There are a lot of the corners now, especially since Plex's day, have gotten bigger, stronger, and faster. It's not like back in the early 2000s where you still had a lot of small corners. You got guys now who have size. So it's not, you have linebackers who have size and have speed. You have safeties who have size and have speed. So it's not going to be as easy to go up for these contested catches all the time. And you cannot rely on your skill set to be relating only to the contested catch. So they need to work on these things. And like I said, you work on them. You got a clean slate with the Dable. And then like I said, but take advantage of those opportunities when they come. Well, that's all I got to say about that. Evidently, Malik Willis. I got a rumor. Someone that I trusted, who's given us information before and who's actually been correct on information before, mentioned to me that the Giants, this was like a week ago, mentioned to me the Giants had already met with Malik Willis. And because he's a friend and because of the fact that he knows that I'm a huge Malik Willis fan, I just assumed he was screwing with me. So I kind of brushed it to the side. And then someone on Twitter pointed out to me that Adam Schefter had already said, well, the Giants, Malik Willis has already met with these teams. And Giants were one of them. I was like, well, my friend was actually telling me the truth. He wasn't just screwing with me. Malik Willis, bringing the boom. Because he knows I want to bring the boom to MetLife. He knows I want to drop in the Willis Express. He knows it big time. But I do find it interesting that people talk about the fact that, well, there's no way the Giants are going to draft Malik Willis. There's no way they're going to draft a quarterback. Joe Shane scouted Malik twice in Buffalo when he had Josh Allen. He basically hovered behind him in the end zone the entire Senior Bowl. Giants sent a contingent of guys to his pro day. And evidently they've already met. I ain't saying nothing. I'm not saying a darn thing, but some funny things do work themselves out because you know what? People are going to have 50,000 different mock drafts. We're going to see 50,000 different scenarios. We're going to see trade downs. We're going to see all this. But at the end of the day, when you reach the draft, all that gets thrown out the window because you know one team is going to screw it all up. And you know one team who has kind of been secretly keeping their hand to themselves. They're the poker player that makes sure they double cup their hand when they're playing poker so no one else can see. Maybe that's what Shane's doing. Maybe that's what Dable's doing. Maybe that's what the Giants are doing. I don't know. You don't know. And this is why I tell you before, I'm not going to sit here and just keep doing draft videos and mock draft videos because it's about, you could come up with 1,000 different scenarios and you could be wrong 1,000 times. I like to try to provide opinions, facts, and information, not just sitting there and speculate. And again, this is Toney Online Big Blue, bringing you the best in New York Giants sports talk entertainment. And as always, if you like, subscribe, ring the bell, it means that you guys